Unilag is an interesting place. They're right in the middle of what you might describe as Nigeria's Silicon Valley. This building is speaking about the future.
We also have to take into consideration some of the core values of UNDP, the inclusion, sustainability, people-centered design in designing this project.
Pretty much every aspect of the work required attention to detail.
This will be a landmark in terms of people embracing technology, people participating in this AI revolution and being able to have a voice for Nigeria and for Africa, the whole conversation that's going on globally.
Everyone who has come in to see the project has been excited about the outcome of the project.
This is University Innovation Pod. Innovation pods are like collaborative spaces. The idea is to have a collaborative workspace where a lot of people can come in with creative ideas, innovative ideas, just creating solutions that solve a lot of problems or give expression to a lot of innovative ideas. But these particular ones are like maker spaces where people can create ideas, make prototypes of them, test them, a lot of collaborative work. So these ones are situated in universities, that's why they're called UniPod. So this particular one is in University of Lagos. So the UniPod's actually intended to be situated in many parts of Africa. I think there are quite a few coming up in Nigeria. I think there are about 4 or 5 live now. And they're all kind of focused on different areas. So this particular one is an AI UniPod. The idea is to help creative people working on AI come together, work on their ideas, have the labs where they can test these ideas, and the spaces have been created. But there's a lot of equipment as well that has gone in here. So this is what we've done, is like create the context, create the space that will house a lot of this equipment, many of which are not very common around this part of the world. But the idea is to help Nigeria and Africa as a whole participate actively in the AI revolution. So this is going to be like an epicenter of sorts where a lot of creative work as far as AI is concerned will be happening. So it's exciting. I mean, we're glad to be part of something very significant. It's unique in the sense that, first of all, the purpose of the building, the fact that we're participating in something really great in terms of being able to be at the forefront, driving the AI revolution through our architecture and creating a space that is intended for, a UniPod that will be driving AI. So I think that in itself is unique. But beyond that, the constraints we had to work with, the building was situated within the university environment. But of course, we had these workshops that we had to convert and repurpose for the UniPod. So the whole experience of being able to recreate these exciting spaces out of those 2 workshops, I found very interesting. Being able to create something out of a space that didn't look anything like what it looks like today. I think many times architects get to design the shell of buildings and maybe the interior finishes, but where you're designing the building itself, remodeling the building, at the same time designing the furniture, designing the spaces, and then even going as far as designing the art, the murals on the walls. I think that for me was very fascinating, being able to have a fusion of architecture, art, technology, all of that all coming together to form one space. I think for me that has been really exciting. First of all, we recognize that this building is speaking about the future, technology of the future. Yeah, but it was also going to be situated in Nigeria, in Lagos. And so we're seeing how we can fuse its context, have contextual expression in sense of reflecting Africa, reflecting Nigeria, while also reflecting technology in the future. Planning of the space kind of was walked around creating a community, right? Taking inspiration from the way our communities are built in Africa, where you have a focal point and then you have a cluster around that focal point. So within this space, we designed it to have a focal point, and then Other spaces kind of radiated around it. But beyond that, there was intentional fluidity. So we had to walk a lot around the curves, just creating the fluidity, which is natural because in nature, most things are curved as opposed to sharp corners. So there was a lot of intentionality around creating that fluidity and giving expression to this communal space. And then all of it embellished in colorful art as we tend to express ourselves in this part of the world.
That we also have to take into consideration some of the core values of UNDP. And one of the core values of UNDP has to do with inclusion. It has to do with sustainability. It has to do with people-centered design. So that was a huge factor that we considered in designing this project. The design approach is centered around three core things: people, culture, place, and it's also centered about technology, particularly AI. But one of the things we needed to do in developing the concept, we try to ensure that we take into the context of the location, which is UNILAG. We also take into the core values of UNDP, which has to do with inclusion, sustainability, and collaboration. And so therefore what we did was to also take into consideration the location where we are, UNILAG being a learning environment, because of the natural extension that the UNILAG life portrays, which has to do with openness, movement, and interaction. So we put all of this together and we decided to design a place within the learning community that would also foster collaboration, learning, and innovation.
We had to do something that will excite the student community. Now, UNILAG, given that it's in Lagos, is a very vibrant, cutting-edge community, right? The students in UNILAG tend to be very cutting-edge in terms of being abreast with new technology coming in, and we were thinking it would be nice to have something within the community that excites the students as they walk past, as they come in and interact with the space, as they move around it and interact with different aspects of the space. So I would say situated in this context added to the challenge of the work and excitement as well. Even as the work was going on, just watching the students go by and just wonder what this was all about. We liked the idea that it was teasing their imagination.
So I'll say that one of the most technical issues we faced had to do with some elements of the structure which we had to pretty much fabricate from scratch. Some of the lights installations we did were quite challenging. Something else we found challenging actually was with the steel structure that supported the mezzanine floor we introduced. This building is an old building. It was built back in the 70s, I believe, or 80s. So the concrete mixture was quite solid. It took quite a lot of effort to cut through the concrete. Even the block work was super solid. It was quite an effort. Those parts were a bit challenging. Pretty much every aspect of the work required attention to detail. However, the MEP works required some extra level of attention, largely because we're not just doing the typical light fixtures on the ceiling, on the wall and stuff like that. We're literally fabricating everything from scratch. The lights hanging from the roof, setting installations on some fixed furniture and all of that. So it required a lot of detail and attention. We needed to do designs and redo the designs to ensure that we were able to get what we are looking for. It required a high level of client management, stakeholder management, to ensure that everyone was carried along and we were meeting the expectations of every person. So it literally kept me on my toes, trying to ensure that at every point I was able to meet expectations on the project. And I'm glad to say that everyone who has come in to see the project has been excited about the outcome of the project. We've gotten commendations from different stakeholders and we're glad that we're able to meet the expectations.
So one of the key things we've done is, because we know that we're designing this in a learning environment, we also take into consideration how to plan the design within the context that fits the learning environment we're doing this. So what we did was, first of all, zone the spaces, ensure that we have an open space, which is more of a public space. We also ensure we created a semi-public space, which is more of where you have the pit garage and the maker space and the AI lab. Then we also have a more private space, which is called the meeting room and the conference room. These spaces interact in such a way that it fosters collaboration. And because of the openness, it allows each spaces to connect with each spaces such that the learning process is seamless and it encourages innovation and development. In each of these pockets of spaces I mentioned, of zones that I mentioned, we ensure that there are elements within those spaces that encourage learning. For instance, we have pockets of spaces that can foster collaboration, where you can sit, meet in twos, meet in threes, meet in fours, to discuss, to ideate, and all of that. So then we also have a bigger space like the pit garage, where it accommodates larger numbers for interaction and for ideation.
Inclusion was a key consideration, even though there were limitations. But we tried to ensure inclusiveness in terms of access to the building, situating ramps at different spaces. Like I mentioned, there were 2 workshops that were eventually merged, and the 2 workshops were on different levels. So we had to creatively introduce ramps within the space that allow easy access from one level to the other. Ensure that even the conveniences, had for people who are physically challenged can easily have, appropriately designed conveniences for them. Even the access to the building, we had to find a way to integrate a ramp in a way that still looked nice and complemented the overall design. That definitely was something that was a priority in the design approach.
One of the core aspects of our concept is place. And when you talk about place, you can't talk about place without talking about that place in context of in the environment and how the design orientations, the climatic factors of that location affects all what we're doing. So we took all of that into consideration, and then we ensure that both on exterior and interior, we kind of create spaces. Like the way we treated the facade, we treated the facade in such a way that we have elements that we applied passive design elements, such as if you look at the exterior, we have some fins, and then if you look at the way we also play with some of the openings in terms of how light gets into the building and how external light interacts with the building. So, and then the way we also use passive and active design to ensure that energy is saved through passive cooling and through active cooling with the AC system that we're able to use to complement the passive design approach that we use. On the exterior, some of the elements we use in exterior, we use those elements to help shade off our meeting rooms. Our meeting rooms are located in a place within the building such that we wanted those spaces to be private. We ensure that when they want to have private meetings, when they need to have a conference meeting, the place is conducive, even without active means of cooling the space. So the facade elements we introduce in those places kind of help to shade off excessive heat and sunlight from getting to that space. So without even the active design approach, the passive approach we've employed in that space kind of ensure that you can use the space comfortably.
I think Unilag is an interesting place. They're right in the middle of what you might describe as Nigeria's Silicon Valley. Not just Unilag as a campus, but some of the other higher institutions in this environment, a lot of the fintech activities around this Yaba area. So I think this couldn't have been situated at a better place as far as the Nigerian context is concerned. And I'm hoping that this will contribute to that ecosystem of innovation, of creativity, of cutting-edge technology, and participation of our youth population in Nigeria. I'm hoping that this will be a landmark in that journey, in terms of people embracing technology, people participating in this AI revolution, and being able to have a voice for Nigeria and for Africa, in the whole conversation that's going on globally. The interesting thing is that this UniPod is intended to be able to interact with other UniPods across Africa. And the idea is to kind of make the whole of Africa a small connected community. If you look at the art that's at the entrance door, it kind of speaks to that. You see dots around Africa and how they're all connected. That's what it's all about. Stronger connection of different innovative centers. So you see that with this center, we expect the the creative people in Lagos to suddenly be connected to those in Abia, those in Jos, those in Zaria, those in Maiduguri, those in Uyo, and also other parts of Africa, right? And I think I imagine great things happening. I'm excited. I'd like to see how it all unfolds, and I would say we're grateful to be a part of it. Grateful to be a part of it. I would say it was a privilege in terms of the ideas, the ideas behind it, and then interacting with the client and being able to understand the vision and how this fits as a piece in a puzzle, or fits in a piece in a network of other, similar endeavors across Africa. I think it felt really good to be a part of something important. And I would say interacting with the clients in the course of this work has been very insightful, very interesting. Even look at the diversity within the client's community, the ideas, and even the appreciation for the work, the feedback about the work. I would say it's been a very enjoyable experience, absolutely very enjoyable. And in course of the development of the design itself, we also had some ideas that the clients shared, because I always say that the success of a project is many times a function or a reflection of the quality of the client. And so when a client's ideas are audacious, when a client's ideas are ambitious, and also very well articulated, it sparks your creativity and energizes you to find solutions, because we're all about solving problems. And so the bigger the problem, the more complex, the more interesting, the more exciting. It's been an enjoyable experience altogether.
It was a new experience, having to work with multiple stakeholders involved. We had the primary client, which was the UNDP. We had other government agencies who were supporting and funding the project in one way or the other. We had donors. We also had the school community.
This was a repurposed building. And, when you think about our universities and the architecture on our campuses, you see that sometimes many buildings have lost their glory, lost the original shine. And I think it might be nice to start looking at some of those buildings, repurposing them, redesigning them, changing the way the spaces feel, changing the look and feel, infusing technology into them and all of that. I imagine that the idea of repurposing buildings across many of these campuses, many of these old buildings, maybe this could create some spark. But I think the overall response, there's interior design here, there's been architecture, there's been art. Having all of these expressions in one building, I think is interesting. And within the way we work, I think this has also kind of sparked some new ideas in how we approach some of our work. I would say for me, one of the most interesting parts has been the murals, right? Murals I wouldn't say they aren't always a part of our architecture, but it was a key part of this design. The murals were to give it life, give it energy, give it context, give it even stir imagination, right? And I think I see a lot more of that happening in innovative spaces, a lot more of that happening in youthful spaces, technology spaces, and collaborative workspaces. Yeah, I think in the course of architectural practice, there are different kinds of projects one is opportune to be a part of, but some of the most gratifying are projects that are very significant, not just in terms of challenging your creativity, but the potential impact to society. So I would say this has put a lot of that together, the excitement of design, but then even the relevance of your participation in something that is truly very impactful in society. It has been a joy, an immense joy, and I will do this again and again if I have the chance.